And we continue with Jack the Giant Killer by Richard Doyle. Jack had not rode above 1.25 miles when he came in sight of a cavern, near the entrance of which he beheld a giant sitting on a huge block of timber, with a great knotted club in his hand. His eyes appeared like terrible flames of fire. His countenance was grim and ugly, and his cheeks resembled 2 filches of bacon. The bristles of his beard appeared like thick rods of iron wire, and his locks of hair were like curling snakes and terrible hissing adders. Jack alighted from his horse, and putting on his coat of darkness, approached somewhat nearer and said, "Oh, you wicked old monster, it will not be long before I hold you fast by the beard." The giant all the while could not see his foe by reason of his invisible coat. So coming up close to him, Jack struck a blow at his head with his sword of sharpness, but missing something of his aim, he only cut off the giant's nose. The monster instantly roared out like a clap of thunder. Though he rolled his glaring eyes on every side, he could not see from whence the blow came that had done him so much mischief. Yet taking up his iron club, he began to lay about him like one that was mad with pain and fury. "Hallo," said Jack, "if this is your way, perhaps I had better dispatch you at once." So slipping dexterously behind him, he stabbed him in the back. After a few howls, he fell down dead. Jack, having thus dispatched the monster and sent his head to King Arthur, resolved to enter the cave in search of treasure. He passed through a great many turnings and windings, which led him at last to a great room paved with stone, at the upper end of which was a boiling cauldron. And on the right hand stood a large table, whereupon he supposed the giant used to dine. He then came to an iron gate, where a window was secured with bars of iron, through which he beheld a number of prisoners, who, seeing Jack, cried out, "Alas, alas, young man! Art thou come to be among us in this horrible dismal den?" "I hope," said Jack, "you will not have waited long, for I have killed the giant with this sword, and have sent his monstrous head to court in a wagon as a trophy of my most glorious victory." And to prove the truth of what he said, he instantly unlocked the gate and set them all at liberty, to their great surprise and delight. Then, leading them to the great room, he placed them round the table and set before them beef and wine, upon which they feasted plentifully. Supper being over, they searched the giant's coffers, the store of which Jack divided equally among the captives, who gratefully thanked him for their happy deliverance, and then departed. It was at the hour of sunrise that Jack mounted his horse to proceed on his journey. He had not rode far when he arrived at the castle of the knight, whom he had delivered from the power of the giant, and recollecting his invitation, he went in and was received with every demonstration of joy imaginable by both the knight and his lady, who gave a splendid entertainment in honor of Jack's victory, which lasted many days, and to which all the nobility and gentry of that part of the country were invited. When the company were assembled, the knight related the noble exploit of Jack, and presented him as a token of gratitude with a beautiful ring, on which was engraved a picture of a giant dragging along the knight and his lady by the hair. Among the guests there present were 5 aged gentlemen, who were fathers to some of the miserable captives who had been liberated by Jack from the dungeon of the giant. As soon as they discovered that he was the person who had performed such wonders, the venerable men, with tears of gratitude, pressed round him to return thanks for the happiness he had procured for them and their families. After this, the bowl went round, and everyone drank to the health and long life of the gallant conqueror. Mirth increased, and the hall resounded with peals of laughter and many joyful acclamations. But suddenly a herald, breathless with haste and terror, rushed into the midst of the company and cried out that Thundal, a ferocious giant, having heard of the death of his kinsman, was come from the north to be revenged on Jack, and that he was within a few miles of the house. The country people all flying before him in the greatest terror, like chaff before the wind. At these tidings, the very boldest of the guests trembled with confusion and dismay, while the undaunted Jack brandished his sword and cried, let him come, for I have a rod to chastise him." And we will pause there.